Imagine working the same job for 20 years, clocking in and out, building a steady paycheck. Then one day, you walk away from it all to chase something most people would call crazy. That's exactly what Paul Cox did. The man behind Fab Rats didn't just leave his career. He bet everything on a YouTube channel that didn't even exist a few years ago. Today, he's sitting on a multi-million-dollar operation with over 600,000 subscribers watching his every move. But the road to get there? That's where the real story lives. Paul Cox wasn't always the fabrication guru you see tearing apart trucks and building wild machines. For 2 decades, he worked construction at a telephone company in Utah. Steady work, reliable income, the kind of job that pays the bills but doesn't exactly set your soul on fire. He'd always been hands-on, the type who could fix anything and build whatever he imagined. Fabrication wasn't just a skill for Paul, it was who he was. In March 2020, right when the world was shutting down, Paul and his wife Michelle made a decision that seemed small at the time but would change everything. They started a YouTube channel called Fab Rats. The idea was simple: show people real fabrication work. No scripts, no fancy editing, just Paul doing what he did best. Early videos featured truck builds, welding projects, and the kind of honest, down-to-earth content that felt refreshing in a sea of overproduced automotive channels. The numbers started climbing, slowly at first, but people were watching. They connected with Paul's authenticity, his willingness to show mistakes, and his genuine love for the craft. But he was still working that construction job, still playing it safe. Somewhere between 2021 and 2022, Paul Cox stood at a crossroads that terrifies most people. The channel was growing. The community was responding. But walking away from 20 years of security, that's not a decision you make lightly, especially when you've got a family depending on you. Michelle wasn't just supportive, she became his partner in every sense, handling production while Paul focused on the builds. Their kids appeared in videos, making Fab Rats feel less like a channel and more like watching a neighbor work in his garage. The decision to quit came down to a simple question. What if? What if he could turn this passion into something real? What if the risk actually paid off? So Paul walked away from the telephone company. No safety net, no backup plan, just tools, a camera, and the belief that people wanted to watch authentic fabrication content. The early months after quitting were intense. Every video mattered. Every subscriber counted. But Paul had something most YouTubers fake. He was genuinely doing what he loved, and viewers could feel the difference. The gamble was starting to pay off, but the real test was just beginning. Fab Rats grew because Paul refused to compromise on what made the channel special in the first place. No clickbait thumbnails, with fake drama. No scripted storylines that felt forced. Just real projects, real challenges, and real solutions. Viewers watched Paul tackle everything from truck restorations to custom fabrication jobs that seemed impossible. The content was raw, educational, and entertaining all at once. One project became legendary in the Fab Rats community: Operation Yellow Submarine. Paul and his crew took on the challenge of recovering a boat that had been submerged in Lake Powell for 30 years. It wasn't just about the recovery, it was about the problem solving, the setbacks, the moments when things went wrong and Paul had to figure it out on the fly. That's what kept people watching. The channel crossed 100,000 subscribers, then 200,000, then kept climbing. By 2024, Fab Rats had built a community of over 600,000 people who tuned in regularly. Paul also formed close friendships with other creators in the space, particularly Matt Wetzel from Matt's Off-Road Recovery. These collaborations brought new audiences and reinforced what Paul had always known: authenticity wins. But success would soon be tested by something far more personal than any YouTube algorithm. In November 2022, Paul's father Sherman passed away. For someone who built his entire channel around family and personal connection, the loss hit hard. Paul could have stepped back, taken time away from the camera, and nobody would have questioned it. Instead, he did something that revealed the heart of who he really is. He restored his father's old truck. Not as content, not as a project for views, but as a tribute. Of course, he shared the journey with his audience, and it became one of the most powerful series on the channel. Viewers watched Paul work through grief with his hands, honoring his father by bringing new life to something Sherman had once driven. The vulnerability Paul showed during this time deepened the connection with his community. People weren't just watching a fabricator anymore. They were watching a son, a father, a husband navigating loss while doing what he loved. Comments flooded in with stories of viewers' own losses, their own fathers, their own ways of coping. Fab Rats became more than entertainment. It became a space where real life happened, and Paul never shied away from showing both the highs and the devastating lows. What most casual viewers don't realize is that Fab Rats isn't just a YouTube channel. It's a full-fledged fabrication business operating out of Glendale, Utah. Paul runs a legitimate shop where he takes on custom projects, builds, and restorations beyond what makes it into videos. Michelle manages much of the business side, handling everything from scheduling to production logistics. The kids have grown up on camera, learning the trade and becoming part of the operation in their own ways. The shop itself has become a hub for the automotive community in the area. Friends like Matt Wetzel stop by regularly. Collaborations happen organically, and the line between business and passion has completely blurred. Paul also landed a spot on the documentary series Mayhem Racing, which follows demolition derby competitors. It exposed Fab Rats to an even wider audience and showcased Paul's range beyond typical fabrication work. The business model works because Paul never treated YouTube as separate from his craft. The channel exists because the work is real, not the other way around. Sponsors came calling, partnership opportunities emerged, but Paul stayed selective, only working with brands that aligned with what Fab Rats represented. The result? A business that's both profitable and authentic, a rare combination in the influencer age. As of 2025, Paul Cox has built something most people dream about but few achieve. Fab Rats continues to grow, with subscriber counts pushing past 600,000 and individual videos regularly hitting hundreds of thousands of views. Industry estimates put his net worth somewhere between $1.2 and $1.7 million, a number that includes both YouTube revenue and income from the fabrication business. He's working from home, spending time with his family, and doing exactly what he walked away from that telephone company job to do. The channel's influence extends beyond just entertainment. Young fabricators watch Paul's videos to learn techniques. Families see his content as proof that you can build a business without sacrificing what matters most. The automotive YouTube community recognizes Fab Rats as one of the genuine success stories, a channel that grew through quality and consistency rather than gimmicks. Paul still gets his hands dirty on every project. He still films in the same straightforward style that started it all. And he's still proving that betting on yourself, even when it seems reckless, can lead to something far better than playing it safe ever could. The man who walked away from 2 decades of security now has something more valuable: freedom. Paul Cox's story isn't about overnight success or viral fame. It's about a guy who loved what he did enough to risk everything for it. He left a 20-year career, bet on a YouTube channel during a global pandemic, and built a $1 million business by simply being himself. No shortcuts, no fake drama, just real work, real family, and real passion. The next time you think about walking away from something safe to chase something meaningful, remember the construction worker from Utah who did exactly that. Sometimes the craziest decision is the one that makes the most sense.